Okay, it's 11 o'clock. I thought I would just pop in and introduce myself before we get things started. My name is Mary Claire Kraft and I work in career services alongside the fantastic Laura Winkler, who's going to be our presenter today. This is JumpStart, and to make sure that everybody knows what we mean when we say that, we are spending some time jumpstarting our career before we get busy with the semester. So thank you all for participating today and taking the time to come out. You'll see you have other opportunities to participate in workshops this week, and we would encourage you to check out Handshake and get some information on how you can participate in all of these events. So without further ado, let's get it over to Laura. But before I do, remember, questions can come at any time. Type them in the chat, which you'll find on the side of your Zoom screen, or you can type them in the Q&A feature, which you'll find at the bottom of the Zoom screen. I'll be monitoring both for the duration of the presentation. There will be a pause in the middle where we might address some questions, but the majority we will hold to the end, okay? But don't let that stop you from typing them in as you think of them. And with that, I'm gonna turn my camera off and send us over to Laura for the presentation. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Mary Claire. Okay, Mary Claire, I really appreciate the intro, and you are the most wonderful moderator. So I know I'm in such good hands today with this presentation. And students, for those of you that are participating, I so appreciate your participation and look forward to your questions. As Mary Claire said, we'll dedicate a couple times to address your questions. Once in the middle of the presentation, and then a little bit of a longer Q&A at the end. Again, my name is Laura Winkler. I'm a senior career counselor at George Mason's University Career Services, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about preparing for virtual interviews. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so after today's presentation, you will be able to learn how to prepare for virtual interviews, both phone and video. The 8 must-have skills to showcase to an employer, how to handle behavioral interview questions, examples of questions to ask your interviewer, and what to do after an interview. So let's first talk about the options, the virtual interview options. So there are 2 main virtual interview options, phone and video. Phone interviews are very common. Employers often use phone interviews for the first interview, which is a screening interview. There has been a rise in video interviews in recent years, especially now due to the pandemic and the social distancing measures that have been put in place. Live video interviews give candidates the opportunity to show more warmth and personality than in a phone interview. In pre-recorded video interviews, candidates record themselves answering some basic questions for approximately 15 minutes. So there can be some benefits to this type of interview. For example, busy candidates can do the recording when it's convenient for them, when there's no distractions, their environment is quiet, and so on. And also, candidates who may be nervous can be more at ease recording the video when they feel the most prepared to do the recording. So there's many steps to take before your virtual interview, and preparation is absolutely key to your success. Before I go into those steps, and it will take a little while because this is the most crucial part of acing your virtual interview, is getting ready for it. I'd love to turn it over to the student participants and just ask you, what are some things you might want to do before your virtual interview takes place? Love to hear any of your thoughts. You can just put those right in the chat function.
We have some great ideas coming in. One student suggests that they should research the company. Ooh, a lot of research the company. Set up your video area and backdrops, that way you're prepared. Ooh, several research the company. What a great answer. Sleep well.
Ah, I like it.
Me too. Prepare questions and answers.
Yes.
Practice. Be prepared to talk about your strengths and weaknesses.
Love it.
some of these students may have participated in some of our events before, Laura. These are great answers.
Absolutely.
Talk it out yourself beforehand.
What was that one?
Ooh, use interview stream.
Whoa. Wow.
We have pros in the line, Laura.
What was the one that you said before interview stream?
Talk it out yourself beforehand.
Love it.
So maybe verbalize it. I love to do that. Clean your
Yes.
teeth.
Yes.
So like a true video interviewing pro. That seems
Love
to be
it.
about all of them, Laura.
Okay, those are fantastic. You guys already have a strong foundation. I feel like, whoa, I'm working with an audience that knows a lot, and that's fantastic. So some other things are, before your interview, you'll want to prepare your interview environment, test your technology, review reasons that you're a good fit, research employers, that was said a lot, and of course practice, which was said too. All right, so let's go into some of these here. Okay, so prepare your interview spot. So with that, you want to find a quiet place. Virtual interviews are best held in a secluded room where you can shut out any distractions. Avoid being near windows, against busy streets, and ensure that roommates, children, pets will not interrupt you during your interview. I'm doing a virtual presentation from home right now, so I actually am practicing what I'm preaching. I put my cat in the basement, my kids somewhere else, and I'm in a secluded environment with good lighting and so on. In addition, a note on the door of the room that you're in, as well as the door to the outside of your residence, may be helpful. So I know I did this because we have delivery people ringing the doorbell. It happened to me while I was in a meeting yesterday. So I've got the note up saying, please do not disturb, virtual presentation and occurring now until the time that I'm finished. You could say virtual interview occurring now and until when it's over. So to give you a kind of a clear peace of mind, you want to clear the desk space that you are sitting at, except for a notepad and pen for you to take notes. Set out a glass of water for yourself. So I've got that here. You never know if, you might get a frog in your throat or something, or a little cough. You've got that handy. Have a copy of your resume, interview questions that you plan to ask the employer. Somebody said that, a student said that. That is correct. And for virtual interviews, ask for the phone number of the interviewer in case you get disconnected. So you really want to prepare in advance for that phone call or video interview. So if they don't give you the phone number, ask for it, and then we'll talk more about what to do if that happens a little bit later. Okay. Other things to do to get ready for your interview. Try to find a plain wall to use as your backdrop. So the interviewer will focus on you and not the decor behind you. Somebody said that, a student said that, and that is absolutely correct. I recently saw a recorded interview of a student who had a fan that was hovering over her head and spinning really fast. And I just kept looking at that fan and was distracted. And so we want to take all those distractions away in our background so that the employer is focusing on the important things that you have to say. Adjust the lights in the room. So a room with natural light is best. If things appear dark, you could bring in an extra lamp to brighten the space. So you don't want to look like you're in like a dark dungeness basement or something. So you want it to be bright and light and so on. So I try to create that here in this room. Make sure that your lighting isn't creating a glare or a shadow. So this happened to me when I sat in front of a window. So don't have a window behind you. It will cause a lot of glare. Regarding a phone, doesn't hurt to have a phone nearby, but set your phone to silent. It's recommended regarding testing the technology to do the following tests. So for your audio settings, ask yourself, do your speakers and your microphone work? You want to test this in advance with a friend or someone like that. Make sure you are coming across clear with no static. As far as the webcam, check to make sure it's working, obviously. Make sure your camera is at eye level. So this laptop is up on a couple books, stacked up a little bit high so that the camera is at eye level. So I can look directly into the camera. When you're looking directly into the camera, you're more likely to establish rapport with your interviewer. Then, of course, check your internet connection. Close any windows, tabs, or applications on your computer that you're not using. So you're less those things will create lag during your virtual interview. And then finally, you want to find out what software, if you're doing a video interview, you'll be using, whether that's Zoom, GoToMeeting, Skype, Google Hangouts, WebEx, whatever it might be. Those are some common platforms. So consider signing up for a free trial and watch tutorial videos to familiarize yourself with the tool that you'll be using for your virtual interview. Okay, so I was so pleased to hear that people talked about practicing. It sounds like common sense, right? But a lot of people forget to do that part. They forget to practice, and it will really help you to shine if you practice in advance. And so we have some great tools for that. Somebody mentioned Interview Stream. I was so excited to hear that. So George Mason students have access to an online practice interviewing tool. It's a tool that allows you to practice interviewing with your webcam with a pre-made interview, or you can customize your own set of interview questions. So you can access Interview Stream on the Career Resources page, where you see that link right there. On the Career Resources page, you'll see a lot of different online resources, and one of them is Interview Stream. Another thing is to check out practice interview questions. So you'll see practice interview questions and work with those in Interview Stream, but you can also check out some others in our Career Readiness Guide. So you'll see the PDF on the Career Resources page, and you can see some really good practice questions as well as questions that you can ask the employer as well. And then, of course, lastly, but probably most importantly, you can practice interviews virtually with an industry advisor or a career counselor. So we, advisors and career counselors, are offering virtual appointments. This practice can make all the difference in your interviews. Your confidence will grow as you become more comfortable in front of the camera. So the way to make an appointment with us virtually is through Handshake. And so you'll see the link right below on how to make an appointment, and it will walk you through the steps there. Okay, so we've covered some material, not quite half, but almost half of the presentation. So I wanted to do a quick check-in to see if there are any questions so far, and you can just pop those in to the Q&A, and then we'll have another time to address your questions at the end.
Okay, so we'll hold here just for a minute. We don't have any questions that have come through yet, Laura. Just a little more conversation about the things you can practice and do in advance to prepare. Oh, here's one that has come through. Should attire be formal for virtual interviews as well?
Yeah, such a good question, and I'm going to cover this. So just really briefly, so in general, it's a good idea to err on the side of going professional. And this could be, business professional. A lot of it will depend on the organization that you are interviewing with. So if they're ultra casual, maybe you're not super casual, but you're more on the business professional. If it's more of a formal, traditional environment, then you want to go, with the suit, for example. So I'll go into this a little bit later. What's important is that you are dressed professionally from head to toe. Even though they're just seeing you from here up, something could happen. You could stand up for some reason, have to attend to something in the room, and they could see whether you are dressed from head to toe professionally, and we want to make sure that you're prepared for that.
Laura, how long are appointments with industry advisors?
Industry advisors, those appointments are 30 minutes. And any other questions?
What do you advise regarding headsets? Do I still need that if I'm in a private room?
So I would test it out. It can be helpful to have like the earbuds, the headset, you know, it's up to you. What I've heard is that the earbuds can be helpful. So, you know, test it out. It's not absolutely necessary, but you want to make sure that you can hear well, and that, you know, you're not, obviously, if you're not going to have distracting noises, then it won't be as much of an issue. So that's why, you know, I did everything I could to control my environment the best I could, and therefore I didn't feel that I needed the headsets or earbuds today. So I would test it out to see if that's important to you. It might depend on your computer. I have one colleague who has to have it in order to hear well and communicate well virtually.
So it sounds like if it means being able to hear or communicate better, we're all for it.
Yes.
One more, Laura, and then should we keep going with the presentation and we'll save the rest of the end, or would you rather keep going now?
Just one more is good for now, and then we can
Perfect.
save them to the end.
I really like this one because I feel like a lot of the students on the line may not have access to a ton of space, especially right now.
Yeah.
Is it not professional to do an interview with the background being your bedroom?
Okay, so great. That's such a great question, and I do appreciate it. It's okay in the bedroom, but find a wall that doesn't show too much going on. There was one interviewer recently who had her interview in front of her bed, and the bed wasn't made. I don't think that projected the most professional image for her. So I think, you know, don't have the bed in the background, have just a relatively plain wall, or if there's just a picture or two, it's okay, but don't have it too busy behind you where they're checking out your decor and not focusing in on you. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
If students, you're still looking for clarification, go ahead and issue the question in the chat. But otherwise, great questions, and everything else we'll save towards the end.
So are we done with the questions now? Just clarifying.
Yep, proceed.
Okay. That's
Thank
what
you.
I thought. Okay, I'm patient, so I can wait if necessary, but okay, sounds like we're moving forward. That's good. Okay, so this was mentioned before as a crucial preparation step. And I'm so glad that you guys mentioned that, and several of you did, because one of the most common complaints from employers about students is that they don't do enough research on their organization before the interview. So research the company's website and check out the About Us section and see what type of information is there about the company's mission, values, and products. Also, Glassdoor.com is a resource that allows you to learn about corporate culture, sample interview questions, salary information, and so on. So that's a great resource, Glassdoor. You can also follow companies of interest on LinkedIn and learn about the company's latest developments. You can certainly do this other ways, like through Twitter as well. And finally, in addition to just looking at their website, which I think a lot of people do, that's kind of the minimum of what you want to do, you could also Google the company and read articles about them. So, you know, they're going to usually put their best foot forward on their website, right? But yeah, I would Google them and read what's being said about them in the press. So that's a great way to learn about prospective employers. Okay, so another key preparation step is reviewing the reasons you are a good fit. So you've gotten this far, you've gotten the interview, which is fantastic. So you have met the basic qualifications and you have real potential in their mind that you are a good fit, but we want to review the reasons why so that you can present that and of course convince them that you are the best fit, you know, for the position. So what can be helpful is creating a T-chart like what you see here that highlights what information the employer is looking for, which you'll see on the left side, to identify how your experiences and skills align with the needs of the organization. So you'll see their requirements on the left, the qualifications they're looking for. And then on the right, your examples. So your examples would be where you demonstrated these skills, and they could be both in and out of the classroom. So all of those settings are fine. You could have done something at home virtually during this pandemic to demonstrate the skill. You could have done it through remote work. You could have done it in the classroom last semester or previously. It could have been an internship. It could have been a job. It could have been volunteer work. Any of those are great examples. But you really want to think through how you have demonstrated these key skills that the employers are looking for. And the T-chart is just a handy way to brainstorm that in preparation for your interview. The other thing I said we discussed would be the 8 must-have skills. So in addition to looking at the position description and the requirements that they're seeking, it's important to know the 8 must-have skills. And this is based on the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is an association that surveys employers across industries to ask them, what are the must-have skills of college grads? And these are them. So we'll go into them in just a little bit more detail. So those are, problem solving, critical thinking, communication, teamwork, professionalism and work ethic, leadership, digital technology, career management, and global intercultural competency. So you will be very well prepared for any interview if you come up with stories for each of these 8 must-have skills in advance. So take some time to come up with at least one story to showcase each of these 8 skills. Again, you can use examples from in the classroom, like group projects, or at work, volunteer activities, campus activities, remote activities, an initiative that you've taken at home to develop and learn skills. Okay. So what I'm talking about now is examples of behavioral questions for the 8 must-have skills. So it's important to know how employers are assessing skills, right? And they often do this through behavioral interview questions. Behavioral questions are based on the premise that past behavior is a good predictor of future behavior in a similar situation to the type of position you're going for. So most employers who recruit at Mason use behavioral interviewing. And they do this, whether it's virtual interviewing, in-person interviewing, you name it, they're using this approach. So I wanted to introduce this to you. These are some sample behavioral questions that are assessing some of these 8 must-have skills. So just to go through them briefly, here's some great examples. So we were talking about having examples of questions you can practice with. These are great ones. So, number 1, describe a time when you anticipated a problem and came up with options to solve it. That's getting at problem solving and critical thinking skills. Number 2, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond to get the job done. That's looking at professionalism and work ethic. Tell me about a time when you had to persuade others. That's looking at communication skills. And tell me about a time when you worked on a successful team project. Teamwork. Tell me about a time when you had to adapt to a different perspective or environment. That's looking at global intercultural fluency. So these are, good examples of behavioral questions. And I'm going to go into now, how do you respond to these questions in an effective way? So when you get one of these behavioral interview questions, there's 3 main strategies for them that will help you to respond to behavioral interview questions effectively. The first is know the trigger word, use the STAR formula when formulating your responses. And I'll go into these 2 tips more in depth. And the third is to keep your response under about 2 minutes. Being concise yet providing sufficient detail is important. So, and you can accomplish that in 2 minutes. So if you go under 2 minutes, which I have seen some students do like 45 seconds or less than a minute, the employers will be thirsty for more information. It won't be enough information or enough detail if the answers are that short. If it's much longer than, let's say, 3 minutes, you might start to lose them. They often, don't have the attention span for that, for all the questions that they're going to ask you, as well as other candidates that they're interviewing after you or before you. So you want to keep it brief, and a good rule of thumb is keep it under 2 minutes. Okay, so regarding the trigger word, what I mean by this is in an interview, you need to make sure that you talk about your own contributions, even in group projects. So it's important for, it's common, for students to say we when talking about projects or tasks that they've completed, because they want to show that they are a team player. But remember, the employer isn't interviewing the team or your group. They're interviewing you. And if you say we, they won't know specifically what you did to contribute to that project. So practice saying I when you use questions. Watch out if you hear yourself saying we. That's not really going to help you to really showcase your own skills, experiences, and strengths, but using I will. So practice using I. Now let's talk about the STAR formula. So this is a great tool to use when answering a question, a behavioral interview question specifically. So in the STAR formula, S means situation, meaning to describe the situation or problem that you were involved in or that you encountered. An example is, each year Mason Recreation hires multiple student employees aiming to attract qualified candidates. So you're kind of describing the situation that you were involved in when working at Mason Rec in this case. T means task. So ask yourself, what was the specific task that you performed? For example, as the marketing assistant for Mason Rec, I was tasked with marketing a recruitment event to attract new student employees. Now, A means action, which means to detail your specific action. So for example, I created and led a committee of 3 other campus partners to reach multiple audiences and developed and implemented a month-long social media campaign to promote our event. Okay, that was the action that you took in that role as marketing assistant. And finally, R means results. So for this part, it's important to explain the results and specify the quantity or feedback you received, such as savings. Let's say you save the company time or money, or recognition that you receive for your accomplishments. So for example, as a result, 30 students attended the event, which increased our attendance by 20%. So if you have numbers, of course you want to show them here. If you have any feedback, like I got excellent feedback from the customer when I went above and beyond in helping them, or feedback from a colleague on how organized you were with a group project, or feedback from a supervisor on your excellent customer service skills. I'm obviously making these examples up, but what I've noticed is that interviewers, and particularly students that I've worked with, forget to talk about the results of their example. So don't forget the results. Okay. All right, so you've done all this prep and you are good to go. You are squared away and it's the day of the interview. Now we need to think about troubleshooting tips, because you never know when something can go awry. So if your video or audio stops working, for example, call the employer at the phone number you requested before the interview. Ask if you can continue the interview by phone, or if you can reschedule. Get a sense of what might work for the employer. If noises interrupt your video interview, such as a siren, apologize for the interruption and ask for a few moments until the noise has subsided. Mute the microphone if the noise is severe. If someone enters the room unexpectedly, apologize to the interviewer, ask for a few moments, mute your microphone and turn off your camera, and then step away to deal with the interruption. This is the example that could happen when you stand up to go deal with something in the room because of some distraction, and they may see you and whether you're dressed professionally. So recently I interviewed a candidate for an internship on campus, and this was a virtual interview. And she had a roommate that started hammering in the background. So she apologized and asked for permission to address the noise situation. She muted her microphone. She did not turn off her camera though, but she did mute it and she walked away. I saw how she was dressed from head to toe. She looked very professional down to her shoes. And then she went and addressed the situation in a different room, came back in about 1 minute. The noise disappeared. She sat back down, turned her microphone back on, and remained calm. Needless to say, she handled that beautifully. You could also turn off the camera if you wanted to as well, but she handled that beautifully and she did get the internship offer. So some of these things are out of our control and it's a great test. Employers like to see how you handle things and they will appreciate all of the preparation that you put in. Okay, interview attire. Some of you guys talked about that. And we're wondering about that. So for your video interview, you should dress professionally, the same way you would for an in-person interview in general. So research the company culture, before your interview so you have a good idea of what's appropriate. Unless otherwise instructed, wear business professional attire. While it's likely that the interviewer will only see your upper half, it's still a good idea. I said this before, to wear professional pants or a skirt, depending on your preferences, and in case you need to stand up. So view yourself through the webcam to make sure your outfit looks professional on camera as well. To look your best on camera, avoid bright colors and patterns, and opt for softer colors instead. So if you're wearing a tie, wear a solid color instead of a patterned one so it doesn't appear too busy. And if you wear glasses, adjust the lighting in the room to reduce glare from the lenses. Hopefully, I don't have too much glare. I try my best to manage that today. Body language is also incredibly important. So in virtual interviews as well as in person, of course. So you may have heard that human communication is 20% verbal and 80% nonverbal. So during a phone interview, even though they don't see you, it's important to sit up straight so you can enunciate well. Smile at appropriate times because as the interviewer can hear you actually smile through the phone. And so you'll come across as more upbeat, more enthusiastic, more energetic when you do that. During a video interview, also sit up straight in your chair. Leaning back like this, makes us look too laid back and not as confident as we could look. And certainly we don't want to be slouching. Keep your hands in your lap to avoid distracting gesturing or fiddling. So I know I like to talk with my hands, so I really try to discipline myself to keep my hands in my lap so that they're not a distraction. And again, make eye contact with your interviewer. So look into the camera when you're speaking, like I'm doing now. This will give your interviewer the sense that you are engaged. When you're listening, you can look back at the screen. So you can look at the person who's talking to you. And when listening, nod and smile to show you are engaged. I think it takes a little extra effort in this virtual format to show that. We don't want to overdo it, but we want to remember to smile at appropriate times, nod our head to show that we are listening. And throughout the interview, keep your mood upbeat, and finally, be sure to smile, especially when you're at appropriate times, like when you're first meeting them, when you thank them at the end for the interview, when you're telling a really positive story or something like that. So we've talked about asking questions, and somebody one of the students mentioned the importance of that, and that is absolutely right. It's always important to have questions prepared, and maybe have at least 3 questions in case they ask, in case they answer them already during the course of the interview. So have at least 3, maybe 3 to 4. You only probably need to ask maybe 2 or 3 though, but maybe have a few more prepared just in case those are addressed during the interview. And so I'm just curious as to get a sense from you guys, why do you think it's important to ask those questions? Why do you think it's important? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
And you can type those thoughts right into the chat. It shows that you care about the opportunity.
Yes.
Because, oh, I love this. It's your chance to interview the company as well.
Yes.
To show interest, to show you are engaged, so that they know you are interested. A lot of very similar themes. It shows you did some research. Excellent point.
Love it.
To show excitement, to help see if this is a good fit for you. And it's just, in general, your one time to really ask the questions you care about.
So true.
It's a good time to see if your long-term goals can be achieved with this company. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
And lastly, it leaves a good impression on the interviewer overall.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we'll stop
I love
there.
it. Your answers were top notch.
Great points.
Anything else? Okay. Anything else, Mary Claire?
Nope, let's go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that was awesome. You guys rock. You get it. You're right. It shows that you're interested. It's an excellent way to evaluate whether this is a good fit for you. Interviewing is a two-way street. It's not like you're in the hot seat and it's all about them deciding on you. No, it's both ways. You're going to be giving your time, your effort, your energy to an opportunity. You want to make sure it's a good fit for you. You're interviewing them as well. And so yes, having those questions, and not questions that are easily answered, found on the website, but thoughtful questions is a great idea. I just want to put it out there. One no would be to ask about benefits before an offer is made. So don't ask about salary first or benefits until an offer is made. So here you'll see a couple examples because you may have various touch points with different people during the interviewing process. And so a good example for a recruiter would be, what do people most enjoy about working here? Okay, for the first interview, or that's a first round interview or the screening interview, a good question could be, what is a typical day and who would I be working with most closely? It's a great question. For the hiring manager, who may be there for the first interview, may not, may be there for the second. A good question would be, how is success measured in this role? And then after the offer, for example, this could be with HR. You could ask about benefits, such as, what is the paternity leave policy? Examples of additional questions can be found in our career readiness guide, which is on that career resources page that I mentioned before. You see the link here. The career readiness guide is a PDF and will hopefully be really helpful to you. Just check out the interviewing section, and that's where you'll find the information. And then after the interview, so did you know that only 10% of people follow up with thank you notes? And so you want to be in that 10%. So you want to follow up as quickly as possible, but no later than 48 hours. Be sure during the interview to write down the interviewer's name and ask for the spelling if you don't have it. And in your follow-up email, try to highlight a specific moment from your interview that stood out. For example, I'm really interested in working for such a wonderful organization. I was particularly impressed by the quality of the management training program you spoke about. If after the interview you are no longer interested, kindly request to be removed from further consideration. If you really want to work for this organization though, and you get offered another position from another organization before you get an offer from your ideal one, then you may want to check in for a status update about your candidacy. So asking about the status of your candidacy, as they may be able to expedite their hiring process if they know that you have another offer. So that is a strategy that you could do if you have a legit offer and you want to know what their hiring timeline is and what the status is of your candidacy. Once you accept a job, you are committed. So be sure that you get ready to negotiate. You can meet with an industry advisor. I mentioned that you can have these meetings virtually as well to work on your negotiation strategy. So they can work with you on how you negotiate for, could be salary, could be other aspects of the compensation package. Like let's say you want to work remotely 1 day a week. That could be something that you could negotiate for. So an industry advisor can work with you on that part. Okay, well that concludes my presentation. You guys have been a wonderful audience so far. I believe I have about 10 minutes, so I'd love to hear any additional questions that you guys have.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. And we do have some saved from earlier in the presentation. It's not too late, and it's not too late to add another one. So I'll continue to monitor the chat or the Q&A feature to look for additional questions. So Laura, you did just sort of answer this. Let's just make sure that students appreciated the nuance. Again, you did just answer this. The best time to ask about benefits and to ask about salary is after an offer has been made, correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
The reason for this is we want to really spend that time before the offer showcasing how your interests, your skills, your experiences, your strengths are in alignment with their needs, with the employer's needs. And that's what you really want to focus the conversation about. If it's about salary, if it's about benefits, then they might think she just wants a job. She just wants, she just wants a certain salary. That's not the message that we want to convey. We want to convey enthusiasm for the position and then how we will make an excellent contribution to their team.
Great point. Thank you for summing that up for us.
Sure.
I like this question as well. Can a thank you note be an email or does it need to be a hard copy?
I think an email is great. Hard copy, who knows right now whether the employer is, how often they're going into the office. So I think the best way to go, especially now, would be an email, but even outside of a pandemic, emails are fine. Just make sure they're well written and that they convey your interest in the opportunity and what you particularly enjoyed about your interview with them.
I know at Career Services we do group interviews, and so I think I wrote 23 thank you notes after my interview, so it can be done. Here's a great question, and Laura, I know this is something that you have a strong opinion about, or something you personally believe. For when students are video interviewing and they have their questions prepared, should they write them out? Is it okay for them to have them written down on their screen or on their phone? What's the best thing to do for a student who wants to be prepared but needs to also be present during their video interview?
Okay, I think it's a great idea to have like a pad of paper here with your notes right there. I mentioned that that's a kind of a preparation step. The phone, you don't want to be fumbling with this phone, looking down, looking at it, whatever. I think it's better just to have like a little notepad with your questions. It's perfectly fine, whether it's virtual interview or in-person interview, to have your pad of paper, with your questions right there. You can also have your resume, like I said before, there in case you want to, briefly refer to it. But yes, I think it's good to have them written down right there where you can just very easily just glance at them if need be. And they'll understand, wow, she's prepared. She's looking at her questions. Whether it's virtual or in person, it's impressive that you are prepared.
I completely agree. And if I can just add a word about using your phone, it's not necessarily fair, but a lot of times if a person sees someone else on their phone, especially in this setting, the assumption, they may be really too quick to assume that you're doing something unrelated. You're on Instagram or you're playing a game. I know I've been in a meeting taking notes on my phone and realized very quickly that I wasn't putting off the right impression. So I would definitely advise against using your phone, as Laura says.
Thank you for making that point. That is 110% true. Yes.
Yeah.
You never know what kind of image that can portray. So I like the idea of, having your phone in case there's an emergency nearby, but not actually using it during the interview.
Absolutely. So you touched on this, but there's a delicacy when you have another offer. So if you need to convey to an employer that you've interviewed with that you do have another offer, how do you suggest framing that?
Okay, great question. So when we're having those communications with your more ideal employer, of course, we really want to express enthusiasm and interest. That is the key thing. So, you are first inquiring about the status of your candidacy. You want to take a moment to, express again your sincere interest in the position. You feel like it's a great fit for you. I would say that first, expressing enthusiasm while you're doing it with your tone. And then say, and I wanted to let you know I've gotten an offer from another organization. However, this position at your organization is my number one choice. And I just wanted to get a sense of what the hiring timeline is because of this other offer. So I think if you convey it very positive, you're being transparent about your interests and that you've got another offer, I think it'll come across as very professional. And that's the key thing.
That's great advice, professional and positive. So what I'm sure no one in this room would do is say, could you please let me know about your decision? I already have another offer. Thanks. That
Yes.
sounds, that's what you would want to avoid.
No, because this organization is your number one, right? They are your number one choice. And so, yeah, you want to even say that directly. You're my number one choice. And I just wanted to see where you are in the hiring process. Just know too, these things are awkward sometimes for any of us. And so just know that you can practice this, your negotiation, how you would say this to an employer with an industry advisor, virtually if you want to. And you can get feedback too about your approach, and that'll make this feel a lot more comfortable for you.
Here's a very timely question, and it relates to when you would want to ask this type of question. Is it a good idea to ask about remote work options given the new pandemic scenario we're living in? Is it okay to ask that before offer, after offer? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think because we're in a pandemic, I think you could ask that. It wouldn't be my first question. So I might ask something about, how do you measure success, getting a sense of what they really care about, what the work culture is like. And, and then you can frame it with, given the pandemic, the situation that we're dealing with at the moment, just curious about whether the position is 100% in person at the organization, if there's remote options, so you're just asking about options. And you don't want to say, I'll only take this option in the beginning, because you want to leave all options open. And then if that is the case, then once you get an offer, you could go back to negotiate for that. But don't show all your cards regarding your preferences before the offer. You're just asking about the options and what's the environment like and how is it set up.
That makes sense. We have got some great questions and we have just about 10 minutes left. So we're going to do our best. We'll do some speed answering if we need to, because these really are great. How long do you wait to get back in touch with a company if you haven't heard from them after your interview?
So great question. I recommend usually about a week. So, you know, first of all, a fair question during the interview is, what's your hiring timeline like? Okay. When may I hear from you again? And so if they say, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks, then maybe don't follow up in 1 week, right? So whenever they say they're going to get back to you, understand that, you know, they've got probably lots of things on their plate. This isn't the only hat that they wear usually, especially hiring managers. They've got other things besides hiring that they do. And so, yeah, you want to get a sense of what's your hiring timeline, and then, you know, give them a few days from when they said, because, you know, you just never know what's going on their end. I would wait about a week. If they didn't give you a hiring timeline, you know, I'd say after the interview, you could follow up in about a week if you haven't heard from them. But again, you're following up with a thank you within 48 hours.
Advancement opportunities. Am I correct, Laura, in assuming that an advancement opportunity is also the kind of question you would want to talk to your employer about after you've been hired?
I think you could ask about it in general, like what's a common career path for, let's say you're going for, in one of my examples, it was a marketing assistant role. So what's a common career path in your organization for a marketing assistant in your organization that's, you know, successful? So you could ask about a common career path. You don't want to say, you know, what are my opportunities for advancement before an offer, because we haven't even gotten an offer yet. It might be a little too forward. But you could ask, what is the common career path for a marketing assistant in your organization?
So it's all about how you frame it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you have an opinion, Laura? We're going all over the place here. An opinion on solid stripes, polka dots for video interviews? Or I suppose interviews in general?
You know, get some feedback. You know, get on, if it's for virtual interviews, you know, get on the camera, see how it looks, because it might look a little different on camera versus in person. Get some feedback from, you know, someone whose opinion you really trust. A safe way to go would be a solid color. But, you know, I would say just get some feedback and see whether you feel confident. And that's an important piece. Do you feel confident with what you're wearing? And that's just so key, because we do want to put our best foot forward, and dress is certainly one part of that.
We have a really interesting question that I can relate to more than the student probably realizes. This question is, this is a real challenge, Laura, so get ready. How does a student balance their perceived youth? This student personally feels as though they come across looking younger, and being excited about a job. So this student has heard feedback before that they have a very young face. Employers have made comments that at first glance they don't appear old enough. And they want to show their enthusiasm, but they feel like that contributes to that impression of youth. What do you think about that, Laura?
Yeah, so I think no matter what, you want to convey enthusiasm in the position, regardless of that factor about the youth factor. You know, directly expressing interest in the position. Some people, believe it or not, forget to do that. So at the end of an interview, this position sounds so great, like such a great fit for me. I'm so excited about the opportunity. That's perfectly fine, regardless of the youth factor that you mentioned. For the youth factor, of course, dressing professionally is going to be very helpful. So, you know, wearing your hair in a professional way, your outfit, blazer, whatever you're wearing, make sure it looks very professional. Making sure that you're using professional language, not a lot of slang. That will help you come across as more professional. Drawing upon experiences where you've shown professionalism, whether that was you were a group leader in the classroom on a group project, or you took extra responsibility in a particular job, or an internship, or even volunteer, or even an activity where you were, the lead in a club or something like that. That is showing maturity. That is showing leadership. Those are the things that we want to share. And if asked about your strengths, you could say, if you feel like it's true, that I feel like I'm mature, I have good judgment, professionalism. If you feel like these are things about you that you really want them to know because it's not obvious at first glance, it's something that you could share when talking about your strengths.
That's such a great answer, Laura. And Laura, I don't know if you remember this, but you were on my virtual interview 4 years ago. And I related so much to this question because I remember thinking about how many times I used the word excited, and I was interpreting that negatively. But then it turns out when I was hired, the hiring manager said, "We loved your enthusiasm." So
yes, and
that.
I was on your interview committee, Mary Claire, and I so appreciated the enthusiasm that you conveyed. And that was how many years ago?
4.
4. I still remember it.
Me
It was
too.
4 years ago. I still remember it. I remember where you were sitting. I remember you talking about the mission of George Mason University. And you were like, this mission, I am so excited about George Mason's mission. And you quoted it. And I was like, she's nailing this. So I still remember that to this day. And yes, it's okay to convey, it's excellent to convey enthusiasm. Employers want to hire people who are enthusiastic,
That's
who's
right.
going to contribute, who are going to be dedicated to their organization, who care about that organization's mission. The alternative would be, I just want a job. No, they don't want that. They don't want that attitude. So I think conveying enthusiasm and actually saying, I'm very excited about this opportunity is a great strategy.
I love it. That's why I wanted to spend time on that question. So thank you for submitting that. So we probably have time for one more, but it seems like it's coming, and I'm trying to pick one that I've seen come through a couple of times since we're not going to get to everything. We've talked about what to do if you're waiting for an employer that is your first choice. But what if you get an offer for an employer from an employer who is not? How do you handle asking for more time? What do you suggest?
Yes, very good question. Okay, so it sounds like this second best employer is one that you would be willing to work for, but they're not your first choice, but you still would be willing to work for them. Is that correct?
It sounds like that is true. It's just categorically, you were hoping for an offer from somebody else.
Yeah. Okay, but you don't want to burn your bridges, and you want to keep that option open, right? That's what I'm hearing. So you're waiting for this other better offer to come along, and you don't want to give this one up yet. So I think what's important here is to communicate at the time that you're supposed to let them know. Before that time, you want to reach out to them and ask for an extension if necessary, or in the initial offer, ask for a reasonable amount of time. When you're asking for this, in other words, you're not saying, I'll let you know tomorrow. You're asking for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, probably at the most. When you are doing that, you're again expressing interest in the position because it is legit. You're interested. You're not the most interested in this position, but you're still interested. You have a solid interest. So you want to express interest. I'm very interested in this position, and it's a big decision. And so I'd like a little time to think about it. Could I let you know next week or by next Friday or whatever it is. So it's got to be reasonable. So probably more than 2 weeks right now in this situation with a lot of people looking for work probably wouldn't be advisable. But maybe 1 to 2 weeks. I think that's solid. I don't think they'll retract the offer for asking for that. Now they can always say no. They can say, no, we really need to know in the next 3 days, and then you need to decide. Just know when you're in a quandary like this, again, you can reach out to us. We love walking you through every aspect of the job search, whether it's resume writing, interviewing, cover letter writing, negotiation, handling multiple offers. That is ideal. We want to help you we want to help walk you through all of that so that you can handle it the best way possible and create more options for yourself.
Well, I'm going to pop back in here. There I am to say thank you, Laura, because that was a ton of questions that you answered for us.
Happy to. Such excellent questions, such awesome comments, such a top-notch group. Yeah, I loved talking with you all today.
So much fun. And for those
I wish I could have seen you, but
I know. I can't wait to
felt like I got a sense of kind of where you all are, and you all have a lot to offer employers. And just know that we would be very excited to work with you, and we are available to work with you.
Yes, if we didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. But as Laura said, oftentimes this is what we discuss in our appointments. So the appointment link was posted in the chat. You can go to the Career Services webpage and find it fairly easily from the homepage. I encourage you to do that. The recording will be made live within a couple of I guess I'd like to say, give us a 2-week window, but probably more like a week. And you can find that on the Career Services webpage as well. A lot of people were asking about that. So Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Claire. You're the best moderator ever.
I tried. To everybody on the line, we appreciate you too. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, students. Bye-bye.